Welcome everyone to this week's Skore user community drop-in session. Got the pleasure this week of talking around future state processes. Big topic, yeah. And as you know, these sessions, the format's pretty clear. We're going to spend 10-15 minutes talking around a subject. And first off, the question that we have to ask ourselves when we start talking about mapping the future state processes is what makes a good process? Yeah, and we sort of say, hey, what makes the perfect process? Those that have sat on one of my drop-ins before will quite rightly pick me up. I always tell people not to map perfect process, so I'm contradicting myself here. But really, it's worth spending that time to think about, well, what makes a good process when you're looking at that design. Yeah, I'm not going to read out every point on this. You can kind of see what's going on there. But it for me, when we're talking about the customer, who are the customers? Yeah, they could be internal, external. There's probably one more customer for your process than you actually realise until you've given it some thought. You've got suppliers, partners, and the like. Really interesting question around there. The other kind of grounding kind of thing to think about is it's got to operate within the constraints of your organisation and the real world, yeah, and the countries that you're operating in. So you can easy to create a future state process which is fully AI, yeah, or fully automated, or actually it costs a fortune. But actually, yeah, there's other factors which in there, which again is why I always I'm saying what makes a perfect process. That's one reason why it's hard to make a perfect process. Yeah, there's always constraints that you've got to adhere to, embrace them. Yeah, make sure you're doing that. And then those last 2 points, is it robust? Is it flexible? The other word we use when we're talking about with customers, talking about designing those future processes, is it agile? Yeah, can it adapt? Because the world will change. Again, these are all factors that you need to at least to give a nod to when you start to lay out what's perfect for us at this time for this process. Yeah, and there's probably other things in there. Please do, add your comments, your experience on any of this. So it's not supposed to be a holistic list on there. The next question, which we get asked time and time again, if I had £1 for every time we were asked this, do we need to map the as-is process? We're not going to give a definitive answer on that because a lot of it does depend. But a couple of questions to ask yourself in there is it an existing process that's being improved? So if you push me, my answer is yes. It's always worth doing the as-is, unless it's a blue sky process. Something you've not done before as a business or or as a team. In which case, where's the value in that? But usually, there's value in mapping out an as-is process. Basic principles of process design. This is what I mean. It's a big topic. Yeah, we're not going to go and deep dive into every way you can create a process, but just to top one there, we've already spoken about it, but who's the customer? Who's the process owner? What's the purpose of the process? It's amazing how many people skip this as a first step in their exercise of mapping a process. It can change, it can evolve, but put something down, in black and white, right at the beginning of a workshop or at the beginning of your thought process, and that will really help shape that process you're trying to do. You've got the classic PDCA. Not going to go into that many. There's loads of blogs. I think we've probably got a couple at least on how to do that, and there's all that kind of stuff in around that. Also, when you're creating a process, especially if you're trying to get one which is fit for purpose, knowing your audience. Always map to your audience. And that could be complicated because we've already said there could be making a process easy to read by all will trump having a really complicated process which only a few people can understand. It will trump it every time. Yeah. And so making sure it's easy to understand, people can critique it because they understand it, it's laid out nicely, all the kind of best practice mapping standards that we preach about and we've got drop-ins on, that will really pay dividend in that. And again, when you're looking at the sort of processing and looking at what makes a good process, being able to understand what makes it, what are those measures which will indicate the good process, and Colin's more the expert on me on this part of things, but the difference between KPIs, key performance indicators, and process performance indicators is quick. Colin, give a quick 30 seconds on the difference between those two. I think it's a very interesting topic.
Yeah, I think the gist of it, the KPI, you're measuring the output. Did you achieve what was meant to be achieved? And the PPI, we will look at the way. Did you do it while following the process? Okay, so it's always interesting to follow both. Obviously, as a business, you want to achieve the outcome. That's what you want. I don't know, sell products or launch a marketing campaign. But as a business that wants to have a continuous improvement culture, you need to make sure that you're doing that according to the documented process so that you can improve it over time.
I think the thing which sticks in my mind from your experience around the PPIs, Colin, is that they should evolve over time. You should change them because people will gamify the process. They'll work out how to hit their PPIs. So you want to change it to make sure that
and it's very easy to over-engineer them. So pick your fights. Usually, it's are they using the right documents? Are they filling up the right templates? Are they uploading their data directly on the platform instead of sending per email? Pick something very simple first, and then when this battle is won, go to the next one.
So digging into a bit more we still call them advanced techniques, but kind of other things to consider when you're designing your future state processes is understanding the root cause of the problems. Yeah, so don't just fix the symptoms. Well, that's pretty obvious, but again, you'll be surprised how many people look at and produce a perfect process, but it's not really solving the underlying issues, and that's where the 5 whys comes in. That's why mapping the as-is process or that as-is life cycle is so crucial. I mean, one of the best examples I've had in my career mapping processes, it was for a pest control company, and they wanted to improve their customer offboarding process. Yeah, and so quite valid. But if you spent a bit of time just asking some of those questions that we said in some of the basic stuff, why are we doing this? What's the purpose? What it really came we wanted to map this process because it was a symptom of a bad process elsewhere. Yeah, actually, we shouldn't get better at offboarding customers. We should get better at retaining them. And so actually looking at the retention process, improve the offboarding no end because we didn't have as many to do. It's as simple as that. And it's just looking at that end to end, that think differently point at the bottom. Let's go up a level. Let's see how is this process part of a complete end to end, and ask some questions about that, where you need to look to map your processes, improve that end to end. The point in the middle about getting experts in the room, I've added at the right time. You've got different customers, you've got different views of the process, and you want to make sure they're all aligned up. So if it's a system implementation project, you're only going to get a perfect process once you've included the people that how the systems work, and is it possible? Is it within budget? Can we actually do what you're asking for? So getting those sorts of players, those sorts of SMEs in the room at the right time, might not put it all at once and day one, but actually understanding how to get that in there. In terms of the thinking differently, I've just mentioned let's going up a level. That's often quite a good kind of step back on your thinking when you're designing processes. The middle one there is stop, start, more or less exercise. So I don't know if anyone's ever done that on your processes, but actually just once you've got that as is, you're asking the simple question of what activities or what things do we want to be doing more of? Yeah, which ones should we stop doing? Which one should we can't stop, but let's try and do less? And then obviously, and then the other one is what could we start doing which would improve this process based on what we're trying to measure. Really simple exercise, but it gets people thinking. Again, that's not even a mapping exercise. That's just looking at what they should be doing. The dogs in space. I don't know if anyone's ever heard us talk about this before, but I love it as a concept. Again, this is Colin's kind of story. I think one of his time working for a famous pet food manufacturing, where it's that blue sky thinking. They had a classic sort of session where they set the example. You basically set a really far-reaching objective. So for the dog food or pet food company, it was, what if we were to put dogs in space? That's not in their product. It's not a big market for them, but it got them to think about the different requirements that might entail and how would it do. And then what happens? It filters down into a food for bone density, or whatever the example is. So it's a really good exercise of just like, let's throw the anchor out to something which is not currently feasible, but actually might get us to think differently and give us some good ideas, which we may or may not be able to apply to our business. So I think in terms of exercise, it's quite a good little technique to get the mind, to get the people going. Yeah. So using all this in Skore, okay, this is just to give a flavour of how it can look. And again, some of it is in Skore, some of it's not, as we've discussed. What I've done here is I've broken it down into 3 buckets of being able to gather ideas for process improvement. I'll give you a couple of demos there. What about analysing the current state and then deploying the processes? We often say you can have the best process in the world, but if people can't find it, understand it, see it, you might as well not bother. What I'm going to do here is I'll put a couple of links to processes just to show off a feature. I'm just going to save that for me. So I've just got these links and I'm just showing them here, just so I've got quick access. So gathering ideas, where do improvement ideas come from in a business? Anyone want to hazard a guess or a suggestion? Everywhere, perfect. Yeah, there's no one answer. It can come top down because we're putting in a system or reorganizing or new business line. But my experience, the really valuable input, might not be by volume or impact, but often it is the bottom up. Yeah, so people running those processes. Yeah, so it'll happen in a couple of places. It'll happen when you're process mapping, first time, or when you're reviewing a process. So even just simply putting a note box all over your process and saying, would it not be great if we could do X, Y, and Z? Yes, great, slapping it in people's faces. And the other way which we can do it if you're in a workshop is by actually putting it against the process. Yeah, so you can have a custom field or a form where you say, I've got an improvement idea. Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we could do X, Y, Z? Both really valid options. Custom field is great because you can then report against a whole scope of processes. Post-it notes note boxes are also great. It's very visual and it gets that. The other way which we have that sort of bottom-up approach outside of a workshop is comments. Yeah, so you can have comments against a process. We could say, again, what about something? Yeah. So you can define this as a question, a suggestion, or again, whatever it might be, and we can put that against the process. Really easy way to trigger the whole process lifecycle to get that process change. Yeah, maybe not massive process change, but those iterative changes that add up and make a difference to people running the process. Yeah, I'm not going to go through the whole life cycle. Other than I would sort of say, as you do go through the versioning, the history, you can kind of see here. Appreciate I'm clicking around a bit, but you can say request approval. Make sure you're putting your change notes in. Yeah, understanding what those differences are. So again, with Skore, it's very visual. You can sort of see not just in the change notes and the audit trail, but you can also roll back to a version, see what the differences are. You've got that whole audit trail. Pretty cool. In terms of analysing the current state, again, we've got drop-ins which are diving deeper into it than I am going to today. But once you've got, again, this is why I love analyzing for the purposes, right? We've got all the information that we need here. So this is a simple invoicing process. I can drill down and it's all very manual. Yeah, so a lot of process improvement will come from the visuals. You can see it's clunky. You can see there's lots of handovers from the role reports, or the RACI analysis will show you that the decision-making process is convoluted or the like. And but in this instance, this quick demo here, I've just put the quantify information in against the processes. Yeah, really quick, easy way of saying, this isn't saying how to improve the process as such. It's saying, where's the bottlenecks? Where's the cost? Where's the time? Because what we can do is we can look at the quantification on here, and if we're going to say we're processing 100 invoices per week, how much are we spending a year? We're spending 80 grand a year. Yeah, because we've put some role costs and the like. What I can then do is create a duplication of that process, and I can have the teams get in my way, so I can't actually get to the tab. There we go, where we can then do the what if. Let's do the 2B. What if we were to automate it? Yeah, this is going back to James's earlier presentation today. Actually, what would it look like if we were to take some of the people tasks, some of those repetitive things out that we don't really enjoy doing? We can then plug back in the quantification information. In this simple example, you can see we're going to more or less half the costs. Yeah, and then again, you're looking at the durations, the costs, and the like. So Skore lets you structure. In this case, I'm showing you the quantification information. It might be out something else, but it's letting you structure information in a way which you can then start to analyze it to inform the designing of a future process. And the last bit, just to sort of say how it all sort of ties in together. As I've said, you need to be able to get the processes out. Deploy the processes. Some of the astute of you might notice I have put roles which I think make sense on these activities. I think it is a dual role of BAPA and owner getting these processes out to people. So what's a really good in Skore, there's a few different ways, but what's a really neat way is to deploy it in some sort of landing page. I know a lot of customers look to include these in a rollout plan, or we'll start to introduce them as adoption rises, especially as content starts to grow. Actually, if you've got a group of people and we need to show them a new way of working, you can drill down into these sort of how do I's, again, branded up, completely fitting to your business, where actually it then gets me to a process, which in this case, simple expenses process, and we can see what we're going. Yeah. And when you're deploying processes, think back to that. Who's the audience? So make sure you're adding things like videos in there, or links to documents, or whatever that information is that's going to help that person understand that process. Yeah. And again, you can see here we've got a process. This process was published earlier today because I was having some bits and bobs in there. You'll notice we got participants against processes. So it's all part of the getting it out in front of people. So now you'll get notified, that this process has been updated. Here's the change log. Are there any open comments? Do I want to add comments? Yeah. What are the call outs? So you can, it's about perfect process, but also keeping it evolving, keeping it updating. It's not a one-time task. Okay. Well, in terms of what I wanted to present and talk through, that's it for now. Any questions on what we've seen? Any kind of comments on your past experiences or something we might have missed out? Any questions?
Yeah, I think in the advanced technique, there's another thing that is quite useful is to define design principles as well, especially when mapping the to-be process. You'd like to have what are the big ideas that we want to implement with our process. So if it's implementing a new solution, here you have it, but it may be a bit more granular than that. If you're creating, I remember a case where we were creating a new role that was owning the relationship between the customer, and one of the design principles was the customer should have a single point of contact, which is someone assigned to them at the beginning of the contract, and if everything goes fine, it should never change. So that was one of the design principles that allowed us to assess the quality of the work we were doing over time. And there was like a dozen of design principles, more or less high level, but they all helped us guiding the mapping, guiding the decisions we were making when we were mapping this to-be process.
Have a good rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon.